Good evening, everybody. Before we start the meeting, just like to remind everybody that this meeting is being live streamed on the Council's YouTube channel for the whole meeting. Okay, our data protection notice can be found on your agenda and on the Council's website. Before we start, just do a few introductions. I'm Councillor Paul Wilkinson. I'm chairing the meeting this evening in the absence of the Chair, and I'm the Vice Chair of the Planning Committee. On my left, I have Mike Avery, who's the Head of Development and Place. At the end of the table, Nigel Bryan, Principal Planning Officer. On my right, Sarah Pregon from the Legal Department, and Kate Goodall from Democratic Services, who will be taking the notes of the meeting. So if we can move on to apologies for absence and substitutions. Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you. Just one apology from Councillor Truscott.
And is there a substitute?
Sorry, yes, Councillor Pearson is substitute.
Any other apologies? Councillor Duncan?
Yeah, apologies from Councillor Elwood. I'm substituting for him.
Thank you. Okay, so if we can approve as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of July.
Move.
Thank you. Was that Councillor Lawrence? And, Councillor Paling, is that seconding? Or have you got a point that you would like to make? Seconding, thank you. Sorry. Can I see all those in favour? Any against? And any abstentions? Thank you. That's carried. Next item, Planning Committee protocol, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. Okay. And any declarations of interest? I'd like to declare a collective non-pecuniary interest on behalf of the whole committee in respect of item 5, as the Council has benefits of servitudes which affect part of the application site and the Council owns part of the application site. And in respect of item 6, application 2022 0795, as the Council owns the application site. I saw Councillor Wheeler, both Councillor Ellis's and Councillor Paling.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I'd like to declare on item 6 that I am predetermined in that I have been campaigning for a number of years for CCTV to be installed on Killissit Recreation Ground. Thank you.
I'll take Councillor Paling next, as I believe yours will be the same.
The same goes for me. I'm predetermined in that we campaign to get the CCTV. We hope it gets approval to be put up. But we will abstain from the debate and voting.
Thank you. Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you. I'd like to declare, with regard to item 5, that I am a member of St Albans Parish Council and St Albans Parish Council has submitted comments. However, I have been careful not to predetermine myself.
Thank you. And Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. In addition to the general interest in item 6, as the portfolio holder, I signed off on the application for a CCTV camera in Killissit Park, so I'll take no part in the meeting.
Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? No? Okay. So if we move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is application number 2022/0153, 49 Chandos Street, Netherfield. Report can be found on page 24 of your paperwork. And Mike, or was it Nigel? Nigel Bryan will be presenting this application.
Thank you, Chair.
The speakers first. I do apologise. It's my fault. Should be. We do have a speaker on this item. First, we have Ray Murphy of JBM Property Management on behalf of the applicant. You have 3 minutes, Ms Murphy.
Thank you.
Starting from now.
Hello all, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Ray Murphy and I am a partner of the applicant. We are wanting to provide 7 high-quality bedrooms for the affordable housing market. I would like to start by thanking the planning officer, Alissa Jackson, for her positive report on the case. She has made it very clear in her report that the application should be accepted and the material reasons why it should. I have chosen to speak today to highlight some more points around the wider issue of HMOs and explain why we have applied for this. The argument regarding too many HMOs in Netherfield is very subjective and has no real facts to support this. As the planning officer has rightly written in her report, there are 7 HMOs in the whole of Netherfield, which is equivalent to 0.24%. It seems ridiculous to say the area has too many of this type of property. If this application was accepted, it would go to 0.27%. I believe this is the reason why the Article 4 direction to restrict permitted development to change to HMOs did not come in during the meeting in April 2022. Regardless of whether this application is approved, this house will become a 6-bed HMO under permitted development rights. There is a clear need for this type of accommodation in the area, and in comparison to a 6 and a 7-bed, I do not believe 1 extra bedroom to cause any more issues. The planning officer has also written this within her report. There have been no objections by the Planning, Fire, Highways, Licensing or Environmental Health Department. There was a similar comment on a previous application we had regarding parking, and we expressed the reality of this argument then. We have 20 tenants within Netherfield, and each house has a maximum of 2 cars. I don't believe this to be any worse than a family home with both parents driving. Part 2 of the local planning document outlines the core planning strategies and states that planning permission will be granted for residential developments that provides for an appropriate mix of housing. I believe this is exactly what our co-living environment does. The planning officer also outlines this within her report on several occasions. Part 1 of the local plan states that there is a high-level need for future development to cater for single people. This property alone would cater for 7 single people who otherwise may struggle to finance and find a rental property small enough for them. Based on all the reasons above, should this application be refused today, we will be going to appeal. Similar to our previous application, it is likely that due to the reasons stated, it will be granted planning permission. This is because the independent body looks at everything that particular area needs. If the application is not approved today, we will this time be putting in the appeal that we are to be reimbursed by the council for the additional costs of this. The house will be a HMO with vetted, respectful tenants who cannot afford to rent a full house, furnish it, pay the bills as well as maintenance. And I don't believe these tenants should be discriminated against. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms Murphy. Almost perfect timing. We stopped it on 2 minutes 59 seconds, so you've obviously been practising. Okay. Nigel, would you like to present the application?
Thank you, Chair. The application is the change of use from a dwelling to a 7-bed house in multiple occupation, and included that would be alterations to the physical form of the building, which would be a rear dormer. These are the existing elevations and floor plans. It currently has 4 bedrooms within it, and these show you the changes with the rear dormer, and there'll be a total of 7 bedrooms, and of those 5 would be en suite, and then 2 would share a bathroom. And in terms of shared facilities, there will be a kitchen and living space. With regard to the principle of development, there were no policies that would restrict the conversion of a dwelling to a HMO. Concern has been expressed by residents that there was an over-concentration of HMOs within the ward of Netherfield. However, a recent assessment of the housing stock has found it comprises 2,915 dwellings, and only 0.24% or 7 are comprised of HMOs accommodating 5 or more unrelated individuals. If this application were to be approved, the percentage would increase to 0.27 or 8 properties. In respect of residential amenity, there are no overriding concerns in that the number of people residing in the property would only be 1 more than could be allowed as permitted development, and they would regardless be living as a single household. There's not considered to be any reason that the change of use would lead to an increase in antisocial behaviour or littering. With regard to highway safety and parking, the existing dwelling has no on-site parking. There are no parking restrictions in the area, and parking for occupiers would be on surrounding streets, as is currently the case for existing occupiers. There is the opportunity to purchase permits in the nearby Morris Street car park, which has a total of 36 spaces. 15 of these could be for permits, of which 7 are available. As a result, there is not considered to be any detrimental impact on highway safety or parking provision from the proposal. I'll just quickly run through some pictures. These are just showing it as it currently stands, and that's just it from the street front. But in terms of the recommendation, we're recommending approval subject to the conditions outlined on pages 34 and 35 of the committee report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nigel. Do we have a mover? for this
I'll
application?
move it and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Paling. Okay, any comments? Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Chair. I've no objections to the HMOs, but it's the parking there. I was told yesterday that we've got huge lorries coming down Chandos Street, and there is nowhere. If those people, there's 7 moving in, I quite understand that single people need houses as well. But where are they going to park? Because we've got the school down the road on Chandos Street. It's a primary school, so we've got kiddies going along. The only thing I'd like to see is a car park or somewhere where the people can park the cars, because believe you me, there isn't an inch on Chandos Street, because most people have got 1 or 2 cars. And the road safety really does bother me.
Thank you to Councillor Miller. We've got Councillor McCrossan, and then I've got Councillor Barnes afterwards.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. It's really following on from previous councillors' comments on the parking. Having seen the photo, it looks even smaller an area than I first imagined. Potentially, if you've got 7 occupants, potentially you could have 7 vehicles. Let's say that those occupants have a partner who also has a car, potentially you could have 10 vehicles. Where is the nearest obvious car park for those cars to find a position to park? That would be my worry, and obviously follows on from previous councillors' comments. It just does seem a little bit of an overkill. The other question is, having been out with one of the waste teams on Monday and spent the whole day in the Newstead village unloading bins where there are multiple occupancy, it's a major issue with bins, and if you've got 7 potential bins of, I presume, the smaller size, it could create quite an issue also with unloading bins on where they're left and what facilities are made to put them. I'm sure there will be facilities in the rear of the building to put those, but again, that would be a possible issue. But certainly the parking for me would be an issue.
Councillor Barnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just worried about if this gets planning permission and the rest of the property in that area comes with the same sort of application, we shall be overcrowded with cars down there. And it don't matter where we live nowadays, the car parking is becoming a problem everywhere. Because we're not 1-car families anymore. It's 2- and 3-car families. And if you've got a couple of children, you can someone finish up with 4 cars. So it's very difficult. And down in Netherfield, the parking problem is an issue. It don't matter whereabouts in Netherfield you go, it's a parking problem. That's my only worry. And the fact that if this gets planning permission, how many more sort of those properties are going to come on the stream? And I know each one would tackle its own merit, but if you've got planning permission 9 times out of 10, it's going to be very difficult to turn the rest down. But I'm not happy with it, but from the traffic point of view, and I think I can understand why people want them, because we need them, but it's very difficult to put them in that sort of area where there's very little parking and there's a lot of cars, and that's my only worry. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Councillor Ellis, David Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. And I think I'd recognise the residents' concerns that are set out in their objections. Many of the issues, though, are not material planning considerations. I understand that they're genuine concerns, but they're not things that we can take into account. I think that demonstrates the limited value of Article 4, in that it's not a silver bullet. Local planning authorities are very hamstrung in terms of dealing with applications like this. Like previous speakers have said, I think the parking is an issue. The report addresses it, and to some extent it's speculative as to what effect this would have. And it has been pointed out that the planning permitted development would allow 6 bedrooms. So this is the marginal gain, if you like, or marginal loss, depends which way you look at it, is one extra bedroom. It's very much a balanced decision. I'm going to disregard the implied threats from the speaker, which I didn't appreciate. I think on balance I will be supporting the recommendation. And I suppose the thing that reassures me is that the HMO will need to be licensed, so we'll need a better relationship with the council, and we'll be able to give some oversight to the supervision and the management and the operation of the HMO. Thank you.
Thank you to Councillor Ayres. Anybody else? Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, Chandler Street, if you know it or know it well, is pretty much nose to tail parking end to end. In fact, recently they've had junction protection double yellow lines installed on all of the roads that connect to it due to problems with overparking and loss of visibility on exiting junctions like Capler Close and York Street. So it does present a highway safety issue alongside the obvious glaring parking issue. I mean, there's other concerns as well around things like, you know, we talk about parking, we've talked about bins, which I think is a really good point made by another councillor, but also there's things like deliveries as well. You know, we're adding an additional 7 delivery slots to a delivery driver's potential route on that street as well. So where are they going to park when they're delivering items to an area that is high in density as far as parking is concerned? And although that's not admittedly a material issue, it's an issue all the same, and could contribute actually to the material issue of highway safety. I know we've talked about. I don't really want to get into Article 4 because I think that's a completely separate discussion and something that should be dealt with accordingly. And I think the issue here is plain. There's not enough space on that road to park. There's 7 potential people with vehicles that will want to park. And, you know, as much as we may allocate parking spaces somewhere away on an available car park on a permit basis, realistically, if it's raining and you need to get your shopping into your house or your children into your house or whatever that is that you need to get in, you're going to park as near to your house as possible. It's just a fact. So, you know, I think it's one of those situations here where we continue with the issue with parking along, and many places, Netherfield, Victorian streets are always difficult for parking, and this one particularly is incredibly full all of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Lawrence. I will ask you to come back, Nigel, on some of the points at the end, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's quite clear from the report that there have been no objections from statutory consultees. Looking at the list of objections from the residents, it is disappointing because I know that Mr. Avery has been out to talk to residents at a meeting some time ago. A lot of the so-called objections are non-material. I think it would be useful if in something like that, when objections are received, they are grouped into material and non-material. It's easier then to counter some of these arguments. It's already been said that this type of accommodation is needed. So, and the fact that there is such a small percentage of houses in multiple occupation in Netherfield, that it won't make any difference or negligible difference to the stock in terms of family houses, but obviously it will make a difference in this type of accommodation. Like Councillor Ellis, I didn't appreciate the comments that were made by the applicant's partner. At the end of the day, we are where we are. There is nothing which would give us, I believe, any hope of turning the application down with any material objections. I note what people have been saying about traffic and cars. I also note that these will be marketed with the proviso that there is no parking available, and I would assume that potential tenants would be informed of where there is public car parks. In terms of the general impact on the area by the existing HMOs, of course, we're waiting, or the Cabinet asked for a report, but that was within 6 months, and there's still a way to go. I suspect that at the end of the day, there won't be much of an impact. I do think that we need to keep reassuring the residents that in terms of all the material objections, that they have been addressed and addressed quite thoroughly. And I don't think I've got anything else to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lawrence. Anybody else before I ask Nigel to come back on some of the points raised? Councillor Barnfather.
Thank you, Chair. I thought it was an interesting approach from the applicant's representative to basically threaten the planning committee with an appeal and costs should we have the temerity to consider not approving this application. Obviously, didn't get past the foreword of the book of how to make friends and influence people. Just a question for the officer, really. 7 other HMOs already in existence in Netherfield. Can you tell me where they are in terms of proximity to 49 Chandos Street?
Do you want to address that and any other points at this point, Nigel?
I don't know where they all are. The only one I'm aware of is the one at 45 Ashwell Street. That was allowed on appeal about a year or two ago, but beyond that, I couldn't tell you the addresses of the others. I'm not sure if Mike. Okay. So yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that question. Can I come back to some of the other points raised now? Just in terms of the parking, obviously the existing house is a conventional 4-bedroom property, so you'd have to kind of surmise from that they'd like to have possibly 1 or 2 vehicles might be operating from it if it were a conventional, in inverted commas, residential property. I think if you're looking at a 7-bed HMO where it's kind of known that there's no off-street parking, I'd be somewhat surprised if all 7 were to have vehicles. So, you'd like to think it would be in the region of perhaps a couple might have their vehicles. In terms of the car park on Morris Street, it's just, if you follow Chandos Street down to the bottom, it's just kind of down here. So it's walkable, but as other councillors have pointed out, you do obviously try to park as close as you can to your house, as opposed to the actual car park. There can be no denying that. But in terms of material change from the actual change of use proposed, I'd be surprised if there would be any significant change in on-street parking as a result of the application. And then in terms of the bins, realistically, they're going to use the same bin service that they currently use from the council. And really, they're going to have the space to the front where they could possibly store and to the rear. So I don't think there's going to be any real change in terms of how the bins would operate from the site. Thank you, Chair.
Just to further clarify the point in relation to bins, there wouldn't be 7 green bins, 7 black bins, 7 glass bins and 7 brown bins at the site. The properties will be living together as a household, so there will be shared communal bins at the property.
Thank you. Councillor Adams.
Can I just ask of what size those bins are, please?
I don't have the details in terms of the size of the bins, but I can assure members that there wouldn't be a proliferation of bins associated with a house in multiple occupation.
Councillor David Ellis.
Thank you. I'd like to help Councillor Barnfather. The report that came to Cabinet in June actually had a list of the HMOs in the area. We haven't got information on the smaller ones, the 3 and 4 bedroom. But the paragraph says, in Netherfield there's been 1 licence granted at 1A Meadow Road. Council has received applications for 6 further properties being processed: 46 Chandler Street, 5 Matlock Street, 56 Meadow Road, 112 Victoria Road, 72, 76 Station Road and 45 Ashwell Street. If that helps.
It's very helpful. Thank you.
Anybody else before we move on? No, in that case, we consent to move to the vote. The recommendation is on page 34, which is to grant planning permission subject to the conditions listed. Can I see all those in favour of granting, please? Yep, got it, go. And all those against? Yep. And any abstentions? That's been carried. Okay, if we can move on to item 5 on the agenda, which is application 2021/1225. We have 2 speakers on this application. We have Margaret Davenport, who is a resident objector on behalf of the residents of the old stable block, and Terry Scott, who is the applicant of Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service. So Margaret Davenport, if you'd like to speak first, please. You have 3 minutes from when you're ready.
Thank you for the
3 minutes from now.
speak.
Thank you.
I live in the stable block opposite the fire station headquarters and I have done for 36 years, so I know the country park very well. There's a lot to comment about in this application, but in view of the restricted time we're given, that I'll limit my comments. It should be noted that it's not mentioned in the application, but the residence, the Bestwood Lodge Stables, where I live, contains 9 residences and has an entrance and car
Sorry,
parking.
Ms Davenport, can you move a bit closer to the microphone, please? Thank you.
Right, and car parking directly opposite the entrance to the fire station headquarters. We believe that greater weight should be given to the natural asset that the local authority has in the country park as a green space and a place of recreation, as highlighted by the pandemic. Access to the park involves individuals, groups, I have pictures of this, individuals, groups and families with scooters, bikes, prams, pushchairs, dog walkers, cyclists, horses and joggers, all sharing the road with a limited amount of cars that go up to the houses and the hotel and the stables. I can confirm that the former use by the fire brigade did not involve large numbers of cars coming up and down the road. My house overlooks the entrance to the station. I frequently take my dog for walks in the woods using the exit opposite the fire station and can confirm there was no evidence of busy exit and entry to the fire station. I don't know where the evidence of the highway department has, what evidence they've used, whether it be counting the number of parking spaces. It would be interesting to see the data. It would be obvious that 32 houses with no schools, shops, bus stops within walking distance, no amenities close at hand would likely produce certainly over 60 cars involving several daily journeys and also increase the number of delivery drivers in the area. This would not, in my view, be a reduction of traffic, but a large increase. It should also be noted that the road is unadopted, and I'd like to go into this further, but I don't think I have time. No account has been made for the road at the bottom at Woodchurch and its access to Queen's Bower. It's an unsuitable width with parking on either side and would be dangerous to be used for increased traffic when houses have been built and for construction traffic. I would ask that the application for building houses on the fire station headquarters site be refused and further consideration and consultation take place to decide a better public use for the recreational amenity that's become available. If the application goes ahead, the opportunities for the country park and its surrounding communities will be lost forever.
Thank you.
Thank
That's
you.
time. Okay. And do we have Terry Scott from Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service? Thank you, Mr. Scott. You also have 3 minutes from now.
I'd like to thank the Planning Committee for giving me the opportunity to represent the Fire Service for this application and the Planning Officer for his diligent report. The setting of the listed building, Bestwood Lodge, has been developed over time, not always for the better. This proposed redevelopment offers an opportunity to redress this with a sensitive master plan that embodies clear scale, massing and spatial hierarchy that will be positive to its setting. This opportunity will create a new environment that integrates with existing rural setting in scale and character, enhanced with the open space of the playing field, which will remain undeveloped. Improvements to the safer pedestrian access up to the development will not only benefit future residents, but also the users of the neighbouring country park. That access road may have seemed quiet in the last 2 to 3 years as the pandemic, as the headquarters, majority of the people have been working from home. And also, majority of the staff are now moved out of that setting and up to the police headquarters, which is now a joint headquarters with Nottinghamshire Police. When the station, when the headquarters was fully operational, up and running, there's 150 members of staff who worked out of there, and on regular occasions, the headquarters hosted many events with fire service vehicles accessing the site. This development provides the opportunity for 30% of the dwellings to be affordable. And finally, I'd like to add that this development provides capital receipt back into the Fire and Rescue Service to fund future investments in the service, which will further benefit local communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I've now asked Mike Avery to present the report, which you can find on page 38 of your documents pack.
Thank you, Vice Chairman. The application is made in outline for the redevelopment of the site, comprising 32 dwellings. Details relating to access, layout and scale have been provided for approval. The site is owned and occupied by Nottinghamshire Fire and Rescue, and it's understood that the operations are currently in the process of relocating to the new combined police and fire authority facility at Sherwood Lodge, as just outlined by the previous speaker. I visited the site earlier on in the week, and it was evident that there's very little activity at the site, so it was secured at the front and there were very few cars in the car park. The site has an area of 1.7 hectares and is accessed directly from Bestwood Lodge Drive. To the north is Bestwood Country Park. There are a number of listed heritage assets in the vicinity of the site, including Bestwood Lodge Hotel, Bestwood former stable block, the Ballery and the walled garden to Gaunts Hill. The existing buildings which occupy the site are primarily two-storey. There are a number of car parking spaces on the site which provided car parking for the previous employees. To the southeast is an area of existing public open space. Well, it's open space, but it's not publicly available. The proposed development will be accessed from via the existing vehicular access off Bestwood Lodge Drive. Within the site, a road would run along the southeastern boundary with a cul-de-sac arrangement serving the proposed blocks of dwellings. The NPPF sets out at paragraph 149 that the construction of new buildings is inappropriate in the green belt. One such exception is limited infilling or the partial or complete redevelopment of previously developed land, whether redundant or in continuing use. This does exclude temporary buildings, which would not have a greater impact upon the openness of the green belt than the existing development. There are no relevant policies in our Aligned Core strategy or the local planning document. The existing site contains a number of buildings of different styles and heights, but with predominantly flat roof and monopitch designs, with ridge heights of the main building being up to 12.95 metres, with a central height of up to 15 metres. The proposed dwellings would have maximum eaves heights of 10.25 metres and maximum ridge heights of 12.95 metres, which would be a reduction in the scale. The existing floor area of the Fire Authority headquarter buildings is 3,640 square metres. The proposed development floor area is 3,428 square metres, which is a reduction in floor area of 212 square metres. The redevelopment would therefore result in reduced floor area on the site. In my opinion, the impact of the development upon the openness of the greenbelt would be no greater. In fact, it would actually be reduced when assessed against the current built form. The impact of the development would also be mitigated by the proposed landscaping on the site, which will be determined following the submission of a future approval of reserved matters application. The proposals are supported by our in-house Conservation and Heritage Officer. The access arrangements, which include a scheme of improvements incorporating signage, speed control measures, and the installation of a footway to segregate pedestrians from the vehicular access, are supported by the Highways Authority. I do apologise, I don't think the actual proposals are clear on that graphic. The relationship between the proposed development and the existing properties has been assessed from a residential amenity perspective, and no conflict has been identified by the case officer, given the significant separation distances between the proposed dwellings and existing properties. On-site open space is proposed, and this will utilise an existing area of open space, which is proposed to be enhanced with the installation of a locally equipped area of play. The submitted tree report highlights that only a small number of trees will be removed, those being trees that are either dead or of poor quality. Drainage matters will be controlled by way of planning condition, and we're content that it's possible to secure a sustainable drainage system for this site. So as detailed in the report, there have been discussions between the case officer and our building control team, and there have also been discussions with the lead local flood authority to ensure that a sustainable form of drainage can be provided. A preliminary ecological assessment has been undertaken by the applicant. The concerns raised by the Wildlife Trust are noted, and further survey work will be required prior to the commencement of development, with any necessary mitigation measures implemented as part of the proposals. The development would require planning obligations in relation to the following, and these are detailed in the report. So affordable housing, secondary and post-16 education, primary healthcare, an equipped open space and ongoing maintenance if the public open space is not to be adopted by the council. A management company will be required for the ongoing maintenance of the unadopted access drive and any other roads and open spaces not within the residential curtilages of the properties and not adopted by the Highways Authority or the Borough Council. A monitoring fee will be required to cover the council's reasonable cost of monitoring the planning obligation, and also a local labour agreement. A number of other matters have been raised by local residents, and these have been addressed by the case officer in the report. Councillors, it's recommended that outline planning permission is granted in accordance with the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have someone to move that, please? Councillor Barnes. Somebody second? Councillor David Ellis. Thank you. Councillor Barnes, you wanted to say something?
I've lived in that part of the borough for the best part of 60 years now, and it's always been well run, the fire brigade. But this is going to make the park even better because it's going to get better properties up there, and it's not going to have lorries going up like we've had fire brigades and all sorts of things going up in the last 40 odd years. I think it's a nice idea. I like the idea. I just worried about what we're going to do with the playing field because there's a nice football pitch on there, and one or two I can remember watching the German prisoners war play in England just after the war up there. So it has been used, and it's a nice football pitch. So I'd like that to keep that in playing, but I think generally speaking, this is an asset for the area. I only live just off Bestwood Lodge Drive, and Bestwood Lodge Drive is more busier than the road going up to the Bestwood Woods. So I don't think this is going to make a lot of difference to the people up there. I think it's going to be an asset for the borough, and I'll support it.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. Anybody else? Councillor Barnfather.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mention it's not a conflict, but I am a former member of the Nottinghamshire Combined Fire Authority. I'm no longer a member, so I don't perceive that I have a conflict now. But I do know the site well, from having visited on many occasions, attending meetings, presentations, and indeed the applicant, I think, spoke about the number of vehicles that were using the site, certainly during the time that I was a member of the authority. And there were times that I would attend meetings there and you couldn't actually park because the car park was rammed. You had people effectively who were all coming and all leaving by and large at the same time because apart from the operational staff in the control room, it was manned by what you might call 9-to-5ers. So you had not staggered traffic as you would have with a residential development. You actually had extremely busy periods at the start of the working day and at the end of the working day. If my memory serves me correct, long before the fire authority acquired the building and put it into its present state, there was a military camp on that site. So we're not talking here. And I've huge sympathy with the speakers. If I lived next to it, I probably wouldn't want it developed either. But we're not talking here about a greenbelt, greenfield site. We're talking about a site that has been effectively built upon a brownfield site now for the best part of this century, I suspect, at least. It's been well used, heavily used by its current ownership, with heavy vehicles. Again, when I've parked in that car park, there have been many appliances, tenders on site. We're going to change those effectively for residential vehicles. And I know cars are getting bigger, but they're not as big as fire appliances. So in many ways, what is being proposed here, I actually think is advantageous to neighbouring residents in that it will create a well-planned residential development that will maintain green open spaces, that will actually reduce the traffic that certainly existed pre-COVID. It will reduce the number of people accessing and leaving the site on each and every working day. And it makes good use of what I say is effectively a brownfield site. So I have to say I do support the application whilst understanding the reservations of neighbours.
Thank you, Councillor Barnfather. Councillor Rachel Ellis.
Thank you. I'm not going to repeat what other people have said, except to say that I am in favour of building much needed housing on brownfield sites. However, I do have a concern regarding the proposed public pathway on the unadopted section of Bestwood Lodge Drive. The report itself identifies that pedestrians will be required to use the drive to access public transport and schools. And that's something that actually was mentioned by our resident speaker. And I'm pleased to see that the developers will be required to install a footpath on that section. However, I have some concerns that this footpath is proposed not to be curbed and will comprise of a gravel type of material, potentially a Breeden gravel type, which bonds. And I note that this is because it is felt to be more in keeping with the area, which I certainly have sympathy with. However, I am concerned that perhaps the edges of the road will appear a bit more blurred with regard to traffic. We know that there will be quite a lot of pedestrian traffic up and down that pathway, particularly parents and children going to school. And one might expect to see parents pushing a number of buggies. Possibly there will be wheelchairs, and I certainly have a concern that gravel is not the most comfortable of material with regard to the friction, etc., to push a buggy, and even more so uphill. Now, I am directed to the fact that this is outline planning permission with conditions imposed, and in particular condition 12 includes the fact that formal written approval of the local planning authority is required prior to commencement of any development, which you know is fine. I would like reassurance that this includes not only the actual housing development, but also that stretch of road, including the pathway, and that not only will consideration be given to the look of the pathway, which indeed is important in that area, but also the impact of the material that's going to be used on the pedestrians who are going to use that path. Possibly even an addendum of some kind in condition 12, just to sort of put brackets, including Bestwood Lodge Drive and the proposed pathway into condition 12. I just offer that as an observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Do you want to address that point now, or do you want to take other speak?
I will address that point now, Vice Chairman. So thank you for your comments, Councillor Ellis. I can give you the assurance that condition 12, it relates to the site in its entirety. So that would include the access and the proposed footpath. I would also provide you with the reassurance that the expectation of the case officers would be that material is a suitably compacted and bound material that will ensure that the footpath is suitable for all users. So that would include wheelchair users, it would include push chairs, children on scooters, for example. It's important that this does work in practice, so that The actual material will be given detailed consideration by the department prior to condition 12 being discharged.
Councillor McCrossan.
Thank you, Chair. Having cycled the route to cut through to Bestwood Park to get to Kirkby for many years on a cycle, I'm aware there are speed bumps leading from the main car park area at the bottom. Can you just confirm what the speed limit is on that road leading up to the proposed new development?
It's not an adopted public highway.
Right.
So the site, the road is currently in the ownership of the Borough Council. I don't believe that there is, therefore, an enforceable speed limit on that road. But the speed humps on that road do significantly restrict the speed that a car can travel on Bestwood Lodge, on that section of road between Woodchurch Road and the Fire Authority headquarters.
I mean, do we have any way we can enforce any speed limit? I mean, I'm just thinking of the fact that residential areas in Wales from the end of this month will all be 20. All the residential roads. Are we in the world where we can talk about 20 is plenty for that? Because somebody's already pointed out, councillors pointed out, children might be walking along there. I don't know what the lighting's like along there. It wasn't that great when I used to cycle through there. Is it something we can enforce?
So there are significant mitigation measures which are proposed to reduce the speed of traffic on that road. The report refers to build-outs, and I do apologise that the actual plan, which we displayed on the screen, it wasn't possible to establish how those build-outs would work, but there would be signage, there would be additional build-outs into the road, coupled with the speed hump. So in my view, and in the view of the Highways Authority, this would comprise a safe form of access. As I said previously, it's not an adopted highway, and I'm not an expert on the enforcement of any speed limits, but I don't believe that speed limits could be effectively enforced on that non-adopted section of highway.
I support the development, but that would be my major concern, because potentially, particularly with the lighting, having cycled through there after school, late at night, 8 o'clock at night from meetings, it is a very poorly lit area.
So it's about striking that balance between providing a safe access and protecting the openness of the green belt, and also the approach to the Gedling, to the Bestwood Country Park. I think that's really important in terms of that overall planning balance. But what I would say is that the actual specification for the access road, that's been compiled by a professional firm of highway consultants, and it's been independently assessed by the County Council in their role as the Highways Authority.
Councillor Adams.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, accepting the sympathetic view of obviously understanding the existing neighbours that live there. Brownfield development, absolutely fully in favour for that to happen here. I think it looks like a very sensible site. It's got good access, and I think it will provide a fantastic local space surrounded by a nice green surroundings also, and in a good location. Really positive development, and very happy to support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? No, we consent to move to the vote then. So the recommendation can be found on page, sorry, I've lost a page, page 57 is the recommendation, which is to grant outline planning permission subject to the owner entering into a planning obligation secured through a Section 106 agreement with the Borough Council as the local planning authority, and the County Council to secure affordable housing, education, health contributions, management company for the ongoing maintenance of the access road and any other roads within the development and open spaces not within the residential curtilages and not adopted by the Highway Authority or Borough Council. and a local labour agreement, and subject to the conditions listed for the reasons set out in the reports. Can I see all those in favour, please? I think that's unanimous, so no need to look for anybody voting against or abstention, so that is being carried. Thank you. If we can move on to item 6 on the agenda, which is application 2022/0795. There's no presentation on this report and no speakers on this occasion. So can I see somebody to move the... Thank you, Councillor Barnes.
Second.
And I think there were multiple seconders there. Did you catch somebody, Kate? Thank you. Okay, would anyone like to speak on it? No? Are we happy to move to the vote then? Can I see all those in favour of this application? Any... Oh, sorry, did you get them? Those?
Yeah, unanimous.
Okay, unanimous, apart from those, obviously, who were not participating, as declared at the start. So that's been carried as well. Councillor Barnes.
Have we finished that, Mr. Chairman?
We have, yeah.
Can I just make a comment?
Sorry, can you put your microphone on, please, Peter?
As the Mayor, I opened the show house on Arnold Lane this week for the own company on there. And there was very, the management of the, I can't, it's Keatmo's, that's right. They was very supportive of the planning officers in this Borough Council, and they made the comment that they're the best officers they deal with from a planning point of view. So I thought it was only fair that we should tell the planning committee and the officers how much we appreciated in the general public, well, from that particular company, who have done a tremendous amount of development on that site there. I mean, I was absolutely amazed when we drove around and looked at some of the properties they've built. I mean, even now they've got a kids' play area, which is most unusual to be built before the houses are built, but they've got a lovely kids' play area, which is absolutely fantastic. So I just think it's only fair that we tell the officers that somebody thinks they're doing a bloody good job. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Barnes. I'm sure we all echo that praise, and it's good to hear it. Even if we have diverged from the agenda as set out, I think we'll make an exception in this case to receive that feedback. But thank you for that. So we can move back to the agenda. So agenda item 7 is future planning applications. Any comments? No. Okay. So agenda item 8 is the action sheet for the planning delegation panels. So we have the 22nd of July, 29th of July, 5th of August, 12th of August, and the 19th of August. Okay. So back to the agenda itself. I've not been notified of any other items which I consider urgent, so therefore I bring the meeting to a close. And Kate, you can stop the recording now. Thank you very much. So